Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things. And I would say, man, today we got a hell of a show for you guys. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want today's full show, it is streaming for free on the DREAMERSPRO podcast. We have that pinned in the comment section below, so make sure you check that out. Anyway, let me get into this topic here. So there was a big beef that took place over the weekend, a very big one, and it was between Stephen A. Smith and Jason Whitlock. As you guys know, Stephen A. Smith finally reached his breaking point when Jason Whitlock began to basically question his career and kind of, dissect every little thing that he said about himself to understand whether or not some of these things are true or not. And then Stephen A. Smith, I guess, finally reached his breaking point. He went on his show, the Stephen A. Smith Show, where he dedicated an entire hour to basically respond to Jason Whitlock. That video has about 1.5 million views last time I checked. It was a fiery monologue. He was cursing it up. He was pissed off. He let him know exactly what he felt. He didn't hold back any words whatsoever. A bit dramatic, but nevertheless, it was a Stephen A. Smith way. Now, when he was doing this, I knew for a matter of fact, that Jason Whitlock was going to respond. I knew this already. I knew. The reason I knew is because, number one, he had made all of these shows where he put all of this effort into producing them. So why would he need to respond when the person he's been talking about finally response to him? So I knew that he was going to do it. Number two, just based off his personality, I knew that he was going to back down from that story. So he did, right? And he put out a full show. And unfortunately, when the show was published, I was actually preoccupied doing something else. My daughter just got born this weekend, my first child, and I'm extremely excited and grateful to God for that. So that's why I was away and I couldn't talk about it. But I was aware of it, right? So I finally came back yesterday and I was able to get into a little bit of it. But prior to that, one of the first shows he produced, he brought up a point that not enough people are talking about, in my personal view. And it's an incredibly alarming point that he pointed out that I think a lot of us should begin to pay attention to. During one of the shows that he presented, in this case where he was dissecting Stephen A. Smith's book, Straight Shooter, he was going through every bit of detail to understand whether or not this information was credible, that information was credible or not. And then he got to a particular aspect where Stephen A. Smith was describing how he was able to garner a college scholarship to play basketball. And as he was going through the story, he brought up a particular point that I have yet to hear anyone refute, including Stephen A. Smith on himself during his hour monologue, which was the point about how Stephen A. Smith was able to gain his college scholarship and how he was able to average 1.5 points per game while only playing 1 point. So for those of you who didn't hear that point, want to play what Jason Whitlock had to say in its entirety, and then want to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what Jason Whitlock had to say here.
So Stephen A. is saying that Winston-Salem State, at the end of their basketball season, when they're preparing for their conference tournament, and maybe trying to qualify for the Division II postseason tournament, that they play a game on Saturday. He wakes up the next morning, they're having a scrimmage that he arrives to late in the middle of, and Big House Gaines checks this 6'1", 150-pound guard from New York City who played a couple of months of high school basketball without acquiring any stats or anything, played a month or two of junior college basketball without acquiring any stats or anything. He shuts down a practice, checks Stephen A. Smith into the scrimmage, and then, according to Smith's account, he knocked down 17 straight shots in the scrimmage. And Big House Gaines offered him a full scholarship immediately after the practice. I'm reading this, and when I read it, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This is a comic book. And this man's calling this his memoir. He got a full ride scholarship after checking into a Sunday scrimmage after a team played a basketball game on Saturday, knocks down 17 straight shots, and the coach of this team, which if you go read Big House Gaines' memoir, his book, his biography. All Big House Gaines did was complain about how limited his budget was at Winston-Salem State, how the school wasn't flush with cash and a bunch of scholarships for his players. He was always trying to make ends meet. But this frail kid from New York City, he gave a full scholarship to next year's team after watching him play for an hour in a scrimmage because he allegedly knocked down 17 straight shots. Who writes this? Who believes this? I cannot appropriately do justice to the far-fetched story Stephen A. Smith paints in Straight Shooter. Smith has struggled to explain it himself on TV. In November of 2022, not that long ago, November of 2022, what is that, 14 months ago, 15 months ago? On the set of NBA Countdown with Malika Andrews, Jalen Rose, and JJ Redick, ESPN ran a graphic of Smith, Rose, and Redick's senior year stats. Let's play this clip. I don't know what is it? Yeah, slot number 4. Slot number 3. Number 3. I want to play the clip of Stephen A. Smith of Malika Andrews and JJ Redick and Jalen Rose. Here's Stephen A. Smith talking about his senior year.
We're coming off college hoops, guys. Yeah. So I do want to show you all a little something. I got a little something to show you here. Before we dig into the NBA, take a look at this blind resume here. It's 3 players, their scoring average in each person's final college season. Do we have any guesses who this might be? Jalen, who do you think? What is this?
Nah, this is hilarious. JJ's on the right.
It's our starting lineup from tonight.
Well, they're not telling us I only played one game because I cracked my kneecap in half, but that's neither here nor there.
That is neither here.
Did y'all just look and hear what Stephen A. Smith just said on national TV? They put his senior year stats up. Everybody's giggling, and you can tell Stephen A's pretty uncomfortable early on. He ain't in on the joke, or maybe no one warned him. I don't know. He tried to loosen up at the end. But then at the end, he says, what they're not telling y'all is I only played one game because I cracked my knee. And then, so look, I'm not good at math. Math is not my strength. I was a writer, and I struggle. I use both my hands and toes to count. But walk me through this and walk yourself through it. 1.5 points per game. How do you average that in one game? Is there a 1.5 pointer in Division II basketball? How do you do it? It can't be done. See, it can't be done. It's comical. It's an impossibility. And I know I'm not great at math, but you can't average 1.5 points a game in basketball in one game. So, that's November of 22.
So you heard what Jason Whitlock had to say. He brings up a very, very good point. And now that he's brought it up, and now that Stephen A. Smith has responded, we got to ask the question, why did Stephen A. Smith address this particular point? Why didn't he address it? Why didn't he address it? Stephen A. Smith said on live TV that what they're not telling you is that I only played one game. And that's how I averaged 1.5 points per game. But all of you guys know that's mathematically impossible if all you did was play one game. That is mathematically, and you cannot average 1.5 points per game, or 2.5 points per game, or 3.5 points per game, or 10.5 points per game if you only played one game. There are no decimal points in the NBA. The free throws, which are 1 point, the regular shots, which are 2 points, and the threes. When you play one game and one game only, you can only get one value. That's all. When you play one or more, or 2 or more games, then the point comes in. So if you score 100 points in one NBA game, your average is 100 points. So I don't know how Stephen A. Smith actually did that. The reason that's important is if he lied about that on TV, because he lied, what else did he lie about? That's a lie. That's a lie. Any way you cut it, it's a lie. It's a lie, it's a lie, it's a lie. But then in another show, I heard him say on his show, a lot of people are making a big deal out of the 1.5 points of the average. But then he also said, okay, fine, I didn't play any games. What? You didn't play any games? Here you just said you played one game because you cracked your knee, a 6-inch nail. I don't know how the hell you got a 6-inch nail in your kneecap, but whatever. He got a 6-inch nail. That means he must have some huge knees. But anyway, in the one hand, you're saying you only play one game. In another hand, you get frustrated and say you didn't play any games. Well, what's the real story? What's the real story? Because if this story has these type of holes, we then got to ask ourselves, what else did he not tell you? For example, I give you guys a perfect example of myself. There ain't nothing up here I'm up here lying to you guys about. Ain't nothing. Before this, we were doing public speaking. We were doing different workshops in Italy. Work for multinational, work with high school kids. High school kids, professionals. Right there on my LinkedIn. Worked in hospitality. Right there on my LinkedIn. There ain't nothing to sit up here and lie about. There's no need for it. Your past is what it is. Now, if I told you guys I worked at Goldman Sachs and I worked at this place and I worked at that place when I didn't, and then you guys start to do some digging, and you're like, but wait a minute, this guy never worked. And then I'm like, well, I didn't really work at Goldman Sachs. I worked for one day. They fired me the next. You're like, but that's not what you begin to question. Okay, but what about this guy is real or not? And that's a pretty alarming point when Jason Whitlock's larger point was he was reacting to what Cat Williams was talking about in terms of industry plants. That would be exactly that. So I don't know how Stephen A. Smith has gotten away scot-free with that. And during his hour monologue, he said a lot of things. He brought up a lot of points. Jason Whitlock addressed some of them from, the email thing and all of that. But what he didn't address was that 1.5. I don't understand. I don't think he can. Guys, I don't think he can. I don't think he can. Because on television, he didn't repeat, he didn't say that. On TV, he said all I played was one game. And then he said somewhere else, I didn't play any games. Now he's going to say something else? So why would this thing be the thing that's the truth? Why? Do you realize there's no coming back from that? Do you realize he told a bold-faced lie? There is no other way to talk about it. Somebody tried to do some Jedi mathematics and say, well, what you don't understand, you bozo, is that... He said, you know what this dude said? He said, get this, one game he scored 0, and in the other game, he scored what? What'd he score? The fact is, Stephen A. Smith did not play just one game, or he played more than one game. And if he played more than one game, why would he then say, I only played one game, and then turn around and say, oh, well, I didn't play any games at all? The dude is lying. And Jason Whitlock got him there. And Stephen A. Smith did not address it. He did not address it. At all. At all. That's pretty serious. That's a pretty serious one because you've been lying bro, that's pretty serious. So what I want to know from you guys is simply this. Do you think Stephen A. Smith lied or not? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts in the comment section. We catch you on the next show. Peace.